Hello, my name's Karen Holford, and I'm a psychologist and a family therapist. And I'm going to talk to you today about a project called Flourish, which we have created for ADRA and ADRA volunteers to help everyone balance their emotions in an unbalanced world, because we do live in an unbalanced world. And there are things that we can do to help rebalance our emotions, particularly when we're working under challenging situations and facing trauma, and helping people whose lives are also very pressured and challenged and hurting right now. So I hope that today you will learn something that will help you to rebalance your emotions and in an unbalanced world, and add extra well-being to your life. So we're going to look at trauma and the importance of oxytocin, that's a hormone in our brain, to help us rebalance our body and mind. We're going to talk about relational connections that help us to rebalance and heal, and how to balance our emotions in an unbalanced world, and how to check our emotions and check our well-being so that we can make intentional choices about helping ourselves face difficult situations. So first, let's think about how trauma is triggered. So perhaps there's a life-threatening or terrifying event, and people who've been in war situations will certainly have experienced some of those. Then the triggers can release stress hormones and adrenaline and cortisol. So when something reminds you of that trauma or makes you feel like you're going to face that trauma again, the stress hormones activate to help you to be ready to fight back or to run away or to freeze, because sometimes freezing is the safest thing to do. Usually what happens is lots of energy is then released to help you deal with a crisis, to help you run away, for example. And then as you run, you burn off that stress and the hormones return to normal again. But if the energy isn't released for some reason, the body can keep pumping out stress hormones and put us in that state of ongoing stress and readiness to deal with a situation, because it hasn't burnt them off in the usual way. And this can lead to an ongoing sense of immobilization, pain, and helplessness that can cause long-term trauma responses. So that's what happens when the body and the brain experiences a trauma. Early symptoms of trauma can include a kind of hypervigilance and a startle response. If some fireworks go off, people can suddenly, oh no, I'm back there in the war situation with the bombs dropping and explosions. There can be very sudden and unexpected memory flashbacks. The memory will suddenly recall an event, and the person will experience it again as a painful memory, and that can trigger their stress. They may become highly sensitive to light and sound, being aware that all of these could be alerting them to a danger nearby. They may become hyperactive because they have a lot of this energy in their bodies, and they're trying to get rid of it or to distract themselves from the trauma experience in their body. Many of them have nightmares and sleep difficulties. And I work with refugees and helping people help refugees. And nearly every single one of them has a nightmare or sleeping difficulty that's an ongoing situation. They may experience sudden mood swings. They may be really happy and suddenly they feel sad again, and they feel overwhelmed by the trauma and the fear. They may feel a sense of shame and a lack of self-worth, particularly if they felt they didn't deal well with the initial trauma. And nobody deals well with that. It's a very challenging situation. We do our best in the situation, and so help them to see that whatever choice they made was a good one for some good reasons, and to look for those. People who have experienced trauma can become easily stressed, and they may talk a lot just to kind of distract themselves from what has happened, and to kind of express the emotions in any kind of way. A distress cycle that happens in our brain is if we don't feel cared for by others, or if we experience some other kind of stress, we feel threatened, we feel afraid, cortisol and adrenaline are released into our bodies. And these are stress hormones that ready us to run and fight or freeze. And they block our ability to listen, to show empathy, and be compassionate, because the body is just thinking about taking care of you in a complex situation of danger. And so listening to others, being empathic can sometimes be distracting to keep us safe. And so our body just shuts that part of the brain down so we can focus on staying safe. And when that happens, though, when we're less able to listen and show empathy and be compassionate, we can sometimes hurt others by our word and action. So we need to be aware that when we are stressed, we are less able to be aware and alert to the needs of the people around us. So when we might hurt somebody else and not respond well to them, then their stress hormones get activated, and then they're not able to listen so well or show empathy or be compassionate or solve their problems well. And then we can create a cycle where people are, without intending to, causing hurt that goes, from one person to the next, and causing stress and fear, as well as a lack of care. Fortunately, the brain has a calming compassion cycle, and we need to be aware of this because then we can activate this caring cycle. When we feel cared for by others, oxytocin and dopamine get released in our brains, and then we are better able to listen, to show empathy, and be compassionate to those around us. That helps us to care better for others. And when we care for other people, oxytocin and dopamine is released in them. And others have a better ability to express and process their emotions and care. And then we feel cared for by others. So as we do more caring, we enable people to care and feel better and feel happier and safer and more comfortable and more loved. And that's what we want to activate. So when we can be aware of how we can do this for other people, then we can be aware of what we need to do to enable someone to move from feeling stressed and overwhelmed and frightened and unable to care for others and to feel care, to feel cared for, to feel calmed, to feel heard, to feel our compassion, and help them to do that for others too. The importance of releasing oxytocin in others has just recently been recognized. Compassionate and caring relationships, as I said, increase oxytocin release, lower stress, anxiety, and trauma. So the more we have these compassionate and caring encounters with others, the more oxytocin our brains will produce, the calmer and kinder and more empathic we become. And it's best if our stresses and traumas are soothed as soon as possible, especially before we go to sleep. Otherwise, those experiences get embedded in our brain in a different way that can cause us to experience more stress and anxiety. So how do we create the caring connections that help to activate people's oxytocin? There's lots of different ways that we can do this, because we can say, oh yes, just be loving, but what does that mean? And the more words we have that describe a loving, connected relationship, the better it is, because then we can think, oh yes, I could comfort this person, they're sad. This person needs to feel welcome and accepted, even though perhaps they feel like they've made a mistake and messed up, or that nobody wants them. Maybe someone needs a hug or a touch or some affectionate words. Maybe they need appreciation. Maybe they just need someone to focus on them for a while. Maybe they need to feel respected or encouraged or feel safe and secure, or know that they are valued or have some support. And there's other dimensions of love too, but these are 10 really useful ones that we can keep in our brain and remember and think, I wonder what this person needs that will help them right now to feel loved, connected, calmed, and soothed. And how can I give them that gift? Because on the other side, if we're not showing them loving connection that's calming and soothing them, we could be adding to their experience of loneliness, disconnection, hurt, and trauma. If we hurt them or judge them, if they feel rejected by us, if we hurt and abuse them, if we criticize them, if we ignore them, if we shame them, or do something that discourages them or makes them feel afraid, or if we put them down or just abandon them, these things will add to their experience of stress and trauma and make their situation so much worse. Everything we do in a relationship is either going to weaken it or strengthen it. And the more caring connections we make, the more we help to reduce each other's stress. So whenever we do something that's on that loving side, comforting, encouraging, showing affection, showing respect, helping people, we reduce each other's stress and the relationship tends to flourish better. But if we do the things on the other side, if we're critical, judgmental, if we don't help them, if they feel discouraged by us, then we make them feel more stressed and our relationship is likely to be more conflictual and more painful. And I wonder, what are your top 3 relational needs? And what are the top 3 needs of the volunteers who work around you and the people that you're working with? As you get to know people, you may listen to what they say. You may notice when they smile and just seem to warm up and flourish and reconnect with people. Notice what the things are that they need and love the most and do these things for them. Because we need all of these 10 things. Every relationship, every person needs these 10 aspects of love in order to flourish. So we need them like we need air and water and sleep and food, because they are crucial to our healthy relationships, as those other things are crucial to our life. And so we mustn't put anybody down for needing any of these things. We all need them, and it's not needy to need them. It's a basic human requirement for relationship. But we often have 3 of these relational needs that are more relevant to us and our lives. I don't need much comfort, but if something goes really wrong and I've had a bad day, or I'm sick, or I lose something or someone that I love, then yes, I will need comfort. I'm more blessed by someone coming alongside to help me out, or some appreciation, maybe a hug, help me feel safe as well in certain situations. Those are the things I like. So what are your top 3 needs, and what are the top 3 needs of those around you in your family, in your work, in your volunteer work? So how do we put relational needs into practice? First of all, we need to be aware of what our relational needs are and know the 10 relational needs that I have just listed. I'll describe them more in a moment. When we're aware of them, then we can let others know how to help us, and we can be more aware of their relational needs and try to meet them. Even if they don't tell us what they are, we can listen for those needs underneath their behavior or their words. Maybe they go, "Oh, I just feel like giving up." Well, maybe they need some encouragement. Maybe they need some hug. Maybe they need some appreciation or some support. So listen and say, "Oh, it sounds like you've got a heavy load. How can I help you to feel better?" And train your team to recognize relational needs in themselves and each other and the people that you are helping. Because when we feel cared for, even in small ways, it will lower our stress and anxiety. Being cared for helps us to be able to care for others better, because when we're cared for, all that lovely oxytocin is going around in our body, which makes us more able to listen, to empathize, and to help other people. So ask what you can do to help others feel more cared for. Maybe in a situation where you're working at the center, where you're meeting people, provide homemade cakes and treats, someone to make a cup of tea and listen. Create an environment where people feel loved, welcome, and cared for, and where they can relax, because that will help all the interactions go so much better. So Paul was in jail. He was awaiting execution. This is Paul, the apostle in the Bible. And amazingly, even though he was in this very difficult situation, his letter to his friends in Philippi was full of joy. So imagine, there he is in jail on death row. He doesn't know what day he's going to wake up and be burnt at the stake, or have his head chopped off, or fight with gladiators, or be fed to lions. I don't know what way, what are the different options that would have been open to him at that time. And yet he is full of joy. How does he do that? Well, let's think about what he's doing there. Emotions are invitations to connect with other people. Paul says, be happy with those who are happy, and be sad with those who are sad. And even 2,000 years ago, he had some very good relational, emotional principles. Emotions are our natural responses to living in a world with chaos and pain, as well as beauty, love, and joy. And the natural response to being on death row in prison would to be stressed, worried, frightened. And we have that response, but we can also choose in the middle of difficult situations to experience wonder, love, laughter, peace. And that's what Paul chose to do. He was able to choose those positive ways of being of experiencing emotions to help him feel hopeful and positive in even a very difficult situation. So negative emotions are not bad emotions. They're the feelings that drain us, that put our emotional bank account into negative, into the red. And positive emotions are the feelings that fill us up and help us to flourish and put our emotional bank account back up into the black again. And the more that we're in the black, the better we will feel, the more able we are to help other people, the less likely we are to get depressed, anxious, and burn out. So our emotions in themselves, they're not good or evil, and they're just ways our body helps us to respond and understand the world and tell us what to do next. So don't shame anyone for what they're feeling. Never say, oh, you shouldn't be feeling like this. They do feel like that. Get over it. Help them with those feelings and don't criticize them, because you'll push them further away. You'll cause more trauma and hurt them. But we can choose, as I said, how we respond to our feelings, even when we're in very difficult circumstances, just as Paul did. And in Philippians 4 in the Bible, he actually lists in just a few verses the things that he is doing to help himself feel better in that difficult situation. And his ideas are being discovered today by psychological researchers and shown to be really helpful when we're in a crisis and when we're facing stress. So imagine that life has many ups and downs, like the waves on an ocean. We go up and we go down, and sometimes we don't really have any control over that. The sea is just the sea, right? But when we have too many negative emotions, they're like weights in the boat, and they drag the boat down. It's slower. It doesn't skim over the waves so well. And we can feel like the water is coming in over the sides of our life, and we can feel overwhelmed and frightened by that situation. But positive emotions are like the wind in our sails. So rather than having weights that drag us down, the wind in our sails, the positive emotions help us to have a better ride through the waves of life. I used to sail with my dad, and there was nothing I enjoyed more than being able to feel like we were flying over the ocean with the wind in the sails of our boat. And yes, there were ups and downs, but there was joy in that. It was exciting, it was fun, and it was an exhilarating experience. Positive emotions are important. The ones that put us into the black emotional bank account, they broaden our minds. They help us to recover from stressful situations and traumas. They help us to build resilience and strengthen us to face challenges. They can help us to be loving and caring towards others. So when we're caring for people, when we're expending lots of energy and emotional energy with people who are struggling, the more positive emotions we can have in our life, the more that we can recover from the effect of the stress that they shared with us, the more we can be resilient to face the challenges, the more encouraged we feel, and the more able we are to care for those around us in our family and the people who come to our centers for help and the other volunteers. So positive emotions help us to be the best possible volunteers and carers and people and friends that we can be. Most people have a 2-to-1 ratio of positive to negative emotions. When I first heard that, I thought that was pretty amazing. I didn't think at that point that I had 2-to-1 ratio of positive to negative emotions. And I thought, wow, if we feel positive twice as much as we feel negative, we're bound to do well. But actually, research has shown that people have much better emotional health when their ratio is at least 3-to-1. 3 positive emotions and levels of positive emotions to 1 negative emotion. And you can go to positivityratio.com, this website on the slide, and you can fill out a simple questionnaire which asks you about 10 negative emotions and 10 positive emotions. Did you experience this today? And if so, how much? None, a small amount, a lot. And it will add up the sums and say, you probably have a ratio, emotional ratio of this today. And you can see where it is. And then you can think, okay, it's a bit low. What can I do to improve that? How can I choose to do something, engage with some positive emotional experience that will help to rebalance me before the end of the day? So it can be a bit like, oh, I recognize that I'm dehydrated. So in order to rebalance myself, I will choose to have a drink of water. Because when I make that choice, I help myself with my dehydration. I don't just go on feeling dehydrated. I don't just go on feeling hungry. Oh, I'm hungry. That tells me I need to eat something. So when our emotions go into a negative balance, and we feel overwhelmed and stressed, that's a sign, actually, do something about it. Rebalance by choosing not food or drink, but another experience that can help you to experience positive emotions. So if we look at the negative emotions in our lives, they are anger, contempt, that's looking down on other people, which is really bad for us, disgust, embarrassment, fear, frustration, guilt, sadness, shame, and stress. These are the top most common negative emotions in our lives. And some of these are really helpful to us. Like if we're sad, it's really normal and good for us to mourn a loss. So people can comfort us, or so that we can process the loss in some way. And even though we are feeling sad, we're going through a difficult time, we can still laugh, we can still love people, or experience wonder, or choose to do something that will help us. It's not denying the sadness to choose to do something fun during the sad time, because it's actually important to help rebalance yourself by making intentional choices to experience joy, gratitude, wonder, etc. But some negative emotions can just overwhelm us and drag us down into despair, and then we can feel hopeless or just too sad. And then when we're so have so many negative emotions, it's hard for us to manage ourselves and very hard for us to reach out and care for others. So anger is feeling displeasure, hostility, or antagonism towards someone or something, and we can help. We can help by listening calmly, showing that we want to understand, saying, oh, it sounds like that's really frustrating. How can I help you with that? And help them to look for win-win solutions, and help them to mend relationships with those that they are angry with, mediate between them, help them to listen to each other, and find something that they can do to help each other rather than fight with each other. Contempt is looking down on other people with a bitter sense of superiority. Oh, I'm so much better than you are. So we need to look for strengths in others, particularly those who come to us, or fellow volunteers, people in our family, or the refugees who have come. Look for their strengths and tell them, I noticed this in you. Show people respect and compassion. Remember that we are all humans. We are all beloved children of God, made in his image. We are all equal. So we do not look down in contempt. In fact, the Bible encourages us to look up at one another, treat one another as if they're just a tiny bit better than us, because that way we will help them to feel lifted up, and everyone will be lifted up. As soon as we look down on others, we all get dragged down. Disgust is a feeling of being revolted by something or someone that sounds, feels, looks, tastes, or smells just absolutely horrible. And disgust is there to help us stay away from potential toxins and dangers. But deep experiences of disgust can be traumatic and lead to mental health issues. I've seen that in my own practice, that sometimes disgust has led to someone becoming very, very obsessive about cleanliness and things like that. So it's important to be aware that overexposure to things that are revolting can be traumatic. Embarrassment is a feeling of shame, and you did something wrong and someone has made it public, and you feel just so embarrassed that everyone knows you did this thing, that you broke something, or you fell over, or maybe this girl was dancing and she slipped and now she feels just so embarrassed. So don't add to their shame, build others up. Tell them what they did well, do something to help them feel special, and don't spread an embarrassing moment over the internet because it's very toxic. And some young people have even committed suicide because of the embarrassment they have experienced on social media. So help protect people from being embarrassed. Don't share it. Don't tell anyone else. Help them to feel better again. Fear is a feeling of anxiety about a real, possible, or probable situation that you don't think you're going to be able to handle well. Maybe you have to make a big presentation to some people. Maybe you have to sing in public or do something like that, or face a danger that you don't think you can do, like maybe driving in London or something like that. Our fears are often based on traumatic past experiences. And so, we have a trauma in our mind that is triggered when we think about doing that thing again. So don't shame or tease people because of their fears. Even if you think that's a ridiculous fear, why be afraid of dogs or spiders or something like that? Don't shame them. Help them to feel safe. Perfect love casts out fear. I have fear of being on the edge of precipices. It keeps me safe because it makes sure I walk a long way away from them. And sometimes if a path is too close to a precipice, my husband has to help me find a way that's more inland, away from the cliffs, or higher up the mountain, or lower down where I don't feel so at risk. And so he's willing to do that, even walk a longer way around so that I'm not exposed to that kind of fear. And that's what love does. Frustration is a feeling of irritation when it takes longer to reach your goals than you expected, or when someone is critical of you and you're trying to do your best. So take a deep breath and think, what else can I do in this situation? Look for alternative solutions. Ask someone to help you so that you can manage the frustrating situation. Guilt is that terrible feeling of remorse, feeling sad and responsible when you think you have done something wrong or hurt somebody. And it's best if we can put things right quickly on the same day, if possible. Because when we don't, when there's a broken relationship or something that hasn't been apologized for on the day that the pain was caused, then that experience, our guilt, or the experience the other person's pain, goes deeper into their minds and can cause anxiety and depression. And the sooner we can mend that, the better, particularly before bedtime, because of how the brain processes the experiences of the day. We don't want to build up the anxiety and stress in the brain that can cause long-term challenges. So sadness is feeling a sense of loss or disadvantage, helpless, alone, or misunderstood. When someone is sad, Paul says, be sad with them, listen to them, comfort them. Sometimes we just need to be there and say nothing. Job's friends in his distress were most useful when they just sat with him. Once they opened their mouth and started to speak, they said some very stupid things. Sometimes I have just cried with people who were crying because that was the only response I could make in the face of their sadness. So don't shame people who are sad or ignore them or make them feel sadder by what you say. And we need to comfort boys and let them be sad and comfort them. Because if we don't, they don't learn how to show empathy towards others. They need us to show them empathy, to develop that area of their brain so they can be empathic. And if that area of their brain doesn't develop well, for whatever reason, there are not people around to comfort them, then they are more prone to violence and abusing others in the future. Shame is feeling inadequate or guilty. And that's usually because someone has put that on us, not that we've done something that was embarrassing, but someone has told us, or you are not worthwhile, or nobody's going to love you, or you're just useless. So we need to cherish and honor others. Don't shame them, bless them, lift them up. If others try to shame them, remind them of their value in God's eyes and yours. And try to leave every conversation, leave the person a little more lifted up than when you started the conversation. Think about, how can I bless them before I leave them? How can I give them some comfort, some joy, some appreciation, something positive, or make them laugh, to lift them up a little bit before we move on to the next person, so that we scatter blessings and uplift in our connections with others. Stress is feeling that you're being asked to do more than you can manage, and maybe if you don't work hard enough, you're going to be seen as a failure. So organize your workload or make clear plans. Sometimes we can't do that. Things just land on a plate that need to be dealt with. But the more we can deal efficiently with everything else, the better equipped we are to deal with the challenges. Do what you can to reduce your stress, and say no if you need to, so you can focus on what you need to do and so that you can flourish. Ask for help if you need it, and try and share, be aware of the stresses of people around you, and make sure that they are not overloaded by stress, that the workload is evenly shared. The good news is that there's lots of healthy, happy emotions that we can access. And this is what Flourish is about. It's saying, here are 10 most common positive emotions. And here are some ways that you can experience those emotions to help to rebalance you in your life and whatever you are doing, so that you are stronger and more resilient and more flourishing and more able to reach out and help other people. So here are the 10 most common positive emotions: amusement and laughter, gratitude, inspiration, joy, serenity, hope, interest or having a hobby, feeling valued, awe and wonder, and love. And let's explore some of these and how you can use them. So amusement and laughter is just laughing at, smiling at something unexpected, unusual and safe, laughing with others and not at others, because laughing at is contemptuous, embarrassing, shameful, makes them feel sad, makes them feel frustrated, and can actually activate quite a lot of the negative emotions. So we laugh with others and find fun, simple, wholesome things to laugh at. A cheerful heart is good medicine, says Solomon in Proverbs 17:22. And today's research shows that a cheerful heart is good medicine. It helps us in every aspect of our body and our organs. We have more oxygen going through us. It relaxes us. It soothes our stresses. It makes life worthwhile. It helps us to engage positively with others. So try and put some laughter and amusement into your life in simple ways. Flourish has some ideas to do this, and we'll unpack them in future episodes of these videos. But think for yourself, what can I do? What makes me laugh? And how can I share that with others? I just went on a website the other day that was full of funny things, and I just sat and laughed for half an hour at all the funny things on there, and it felt really good at the end of it. And you can just choose to do that, particularly at the end of a difficult day. Watch something funny with your friends. So awe and wonder is a sense of wonder about something beautiful in nature or in another person that makes you go, wow, and look for that everywhere. During lockdown, I used to go for a walk every day with my phone and look for pictures that filled me with wonder: a flower, a squirrel, an autumn leaf, whatever it was, the sky that filled me with wonder. And by focusing on looking for what is going to fill me with wonder today that I can take a photograph of, that helped me to stay positive on my walk and not just wander around being filled with anxiety. So when we have a sense of wonder about something beautiful or in nature or in another person, then we have that wow, uplifting experience. And it's really lovely if we can share that with someone else. I recently saw a rainbow and my husband wasn't with me, and I knew if I took a photograph, it wouldn't really show how beautiful it was. So when we have wonder moments with other people, they're somehow enhanced. Then there's the emotion of thankfulness and gratitude. Appreciation of something or someone makes our life better, more comfortable, and more enjoyable. And Paul says this several times: give thanks in all circumstances. That's not for all circumstances. We don't want to be thankful for those. I'm sure Paul wasn't thankful that he was on death row, but even in that situation, he could give thanks for his friends, for his positive memories, for all that God was doing for him, for the people who came and brought him messages and clothes, when he was cold, and food when he was hungry. So the more that we thank people, the less arguments we have with them. Every time we are thankful, we feel better, and the person we thank feels better too. So people are blessed by that. Hope is the belief that things can and will change and improve. And that's so important when we're in a crisis. We need to feel like there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that we will get there, that things will get better, and that can help us to be resilient and push our way through the challenges to get to the other side. Inspiration is being inspired by God or spiritual insights, or even just recognizing excellence in another person. So maybe you see a beautiful painting and you go, wow, what an incredible painter. Or you listen to a piece of music and you think, what an amazing musician. That's so inspirational. Or maybe you just look at, have a moment of wonder, or be inspired by something else, or inspired by someone's story. So inspiration is good for us, and it's good for us to focus on things that are true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, and praiseworthy. So if you're finding that the news fills you with anxiety, turn it off. You don't have to feed your anxiety. There are websites that are full of good news. Many good things are happening in the world that just get forgotten and not noticed. Great breakthroughs in research, amazing things that people are doing to care for each other, all sorts of incredible stories. So look for the things that lift you up, focus on them, and don't feed your minds with things that stress you. We all need to have a hobby where we can just come away from a work situation or a stressful situation and just lose ourselves in doing something beautiful and fun. It could be running, reading, playing music, doing arts and crafts. Often arts and crafts are good because they involve repetitive movements. Exercise is good because that also helps our bodies to process the stresses in them. The adrenaline can burn them off. But when we can just lose ourselves in doing a crossword even, or a jigsaw puzzle, or something simple, or making dinner, baking, then we can give our brains a break from the stress and just enjoy the moment, because this thing right now is absorbing all my attention, and that's really important. Joy is different to laughter. We can feel joy and happiness without thinking that something is funny. When good things happen, when we hear good news, when we're with our friends, what gives me joy is having all of my family around the dinner table and eating together and just laughing and talking. And that can be such a good feeling. So what brings you joy? And make sure you do those things when you can. We also need to have a healthy sense of purpose and value, to know that what we do makes a difference, that people value us, that we are treasured, that we make a difference in the world. And that's such an important part of what we're doing. So know that you make a difference. Think about what you do well. Tell others when they have done something well. Encourage each other by noticing what each other is doing well and by valuing it in different ways. Serenity is feeling peaceful, still, calm, and contented. Take a deep breath. You can sigh. You can sit in the sun and sip your favorite drink. I like to blow bubbles. That always calms me down. Listen to some soothing music, light a candle, whatever it is. We need to have moments of peacefulness and stillness and calm and contentment in our busy and crazy lives. They help us to rebalance, just to be still. Often we make our to-do lists and we plow our way through them, and nowhere on that to-do list is time to be still and just rest and reflect on the day and notice what you've done well and notice what you're grateful for. Love is a blend of the other positive emotions experienced in a warm, close, safe, and caring relationship. So it makes every one of the other positive emotions feel so much better when we share them with someone else, like being grateful to someone, like doing a fun activity together, being involved in a hobby together, experiencing peace and wonder together, whatever it is. When we do it with someone else, somehow that joy is doubled. And I wonder what helps you to feel especially loved and cared for. Gary Chapman talks about 5 love languages of kind words, being helped, thoughtful gifts, someone spending time with us, or physical affection. He says these are the top 5 ways we like to be loved. And know the love languages that you have and the people in the group you're caring for. What helps them to feel especially loved? And then do those things to help them feel loved. Finally, we need to keep a check on our well-being. As I mentioned earlier, you can go to positivityratio.com, and there's a simple and quick tool that you can use or print off to use regularly to measure your emotional balance. Now I can just check in with myself in the evening, maybe about 4 or 5 o'clock. What kind of day have I had? How emotionally balanced am I? Am I feeling stressed? Do I need to choose to do some things that will rebalance me, put me back into a positive emotional bank account and raise my level of positivity? Because I can choose to do those things to help me face the challenges in my life and become more resilient. Or you can just use a scale like the one at the bottom, or use a ruler and imagine that 0 is stress-free and 10 is super stressed and exhausted. Think where you are on the stress scale. What could you do to lower your stress level to the next lowest number? And be aware of that. Because if you get over 8 on the scale very regularly, you really need to work hard at thinking, what can I do to lower this? How can I choose something lovely to do, something positive to do that will help to lower my stress and rebalance myself? Because you are important. You are worth taking care of. If you are caring for other people, you need to care for yourself as well, because it's like an oxygen mask on the airplane. If you are not taking care of your resilience, your emotional balance, you'll be in a less good place to take care of others. Because if you dip into the negative side too much, you won't be able to respond well to them. You may find them more annoying, frustrating. You may react in ways that may cause them hurt. And it's not healthy for yourself. We will all dip there once in a while, but we don't want to get stuck there and end up feeling burnt out, depressed, anxious, or giving up on the things that make our life meaningful. So also invite warm connections as you check your emotional balance before the end of the day and realize that you've tipped into stress or you've had some challenges. Also think about your relational needs, not just your emotional needs. Do you need someone to listen to you? Someone to do something to care for you? Do you need comfort because you've heard some challenging and heartbreaking stories? Do you need some encouragement to keep you going because you're really tired? Do you need some helpful support because you've had to work longer hours and now you need help to make the dinner because you're tired? Do you need some appreciation that will help you to keep going and know that what you do is valued by others? Who can you invite to connect with you in this way? Maybe you have volunteers around you. Maybe before you leave your workplace where you're caring for people, you can check in with each other and say, what can I do for you right now? How can we nurture each other's emotional balance or take care of each other relationally? Maybe you have a friend that you can talk to and connect with that can give you some encouragement or a hug or whatever it is you need, or a family member. So make sure that you take care of your relationships as well, because other people can't guess what you need. And it's good to let them know so they can care for you in the best possible way. I've been married to my husband for nearly 40 years. We know all about relational needs. They have helped our relationship become stronger and more loving over the years. And we look out for each other's relational needs. But even though we are both family therapists and we care for each other and we love each other very much, we cannot guess what each other needs. We can have a pretty good guess, but it helps if we can tell each other, you know what, this is what I need today. And that's what we do. And we try to guess when we can and do what we can to support the other person. But it's really good to let others know what you need and put those words into actions and say, you know what, I think I could just use a hug, or I could really use some help with this right now. And get used to saying those things and asking other people what they need, because that way we can support each other in these challenges of life. Over the next few weeks on Flourish, we're going to be talking about the different positive emotions, how to experience more of them in our lives, why they're so important for us, how we can experience them by ourselves and with others so that we can balance our emotions better. And we'll also be learning how to care for each other in times of stress and sadness and difficult days and moments so that we can be better at caring for one another and those that we love. So I hope that you'll join us on this journey and tune into the other videos that are going to be shown and recorded and saved so that you can take care of yourself and you can be the best possible you to take care of others because you're worth it and they're worth it. Thank you.